want to encourage you to come on in and take a seat. As we're getting started, I just wanted to mention a couple of announcements that are important regarding your final in this class. So, wow, it got quiet when I said your final in this class. So you don't actually have a traditional final exam in this class. However, there is going to be an opportunity for you to earn some credit with a final item. It'll be very similar to what you have been doing so far in that you discuss the presentations that you hear each week. The final exam is more of a reflection, not an exam. It's more of an activity, final activity. It's more of a reflection on what you've learned throughout all of the presenters during the semester. So I just mentioned that because next week we don't have this class, but you should watch your Canvas updates and announcements in your mail because that's where you'll find the details on that final, and it'll give you an opportunity to begin to prepare for that. It is something you could do quite a little bit of preparation for in advance, and so the details will be coming on that. I also want to thank those that participated the last couple of weeks as we had the Entrepreneurship Week here at Snow College, and particularly those that went to the Greenwood Student Center and cast your votes, and those that presented at the Greenwood Student Center during our Audience Choice Opportunity Quest evening last Wednesday. So thank you to all who participated in that. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Travis Good, who is today's special guest presenter. He began his entrepreneurial ventures when he was younger than all of you, and started at the age of 15. I'm going to let him tell his own story, so I won't go into all of the details, but he set a record in the state of Utah. He was the first to have a commercial pesticide applicator license. He received an award from the governor of Utah, Governor Norm Bangerter, who you probably read about in your history books now, right? You're welcome, Travis. And was awarded the Governor's Entrepreneurial Award from Governor Bangerter. Since that time, he has owned several other businesses, including a motorcycle shop, car dealership, his own excavating company, an employment agency. Some of you may have heard of USA Freedom Run. That was his venture. And others, which he has managed concurrently with EcoLife. He's been running these for nearly 2 decades, and EcoLife is probably the one that I think people think of first and foremost when they hear his name. EcoLife operates as a landscape, specializes in lawn care treatment, weed and pest control, as well as landscape installations, serving all of Utah as well as surrounding states. And he and I were just talking, and he's also done work in Maui, Hawaii, which is sort of a surrounding state of Utah, but not contiguous, right? So we welcome him here today. He and his wife are both with us, and it's Lindsay. And we appreciate her being here as well. They're active in their community and enjoy spending time with their family and supporting their family in all of their endeavors. Please welcome Mr. Travis Good.
Hello, I'm excited to be here. I'm going to start back in my life just a little bit and then kind of move through some things. The very first thing I want to say that just a week ago I was reading a statistic or a study that was put out by Stanford. America and the United States is actually declining in entrepreneurship. We've been passed up by several countries. The country that's winning in entrepreneurship right now is Peru. I thought that was interesting. And as I look at many of you here, I think, let's get this going. You are the ones to start businesses, and we have such an opportunity here in the United States to make that happen. You need to be jumping on those opportunities. To tell you a little bit about me, my mom thinks this is the funniest story, and I kind of do too. When I was about 9 years old, I grew up in a little town called Mayfield. Mayfield's about 25 miles from Ephraim to the south, kind of southeast. And there was one little store in Mayfield. And when I was about 9 years old, I got with my friends, and we were going to do a lemonade stand down at the store, which, looking back now, is probably direct competition with the little store, but I don't think it seemed to mind. Well, I had a wagon, and I went to my friend Shane's house, and I picked up this big picture of lemonade that his mom had made or he had made. And then we went to my friend Carl's house, and Carl had the cups. We sold lemonade for an entire day. And then I remember I split the profits with them. I took 50% and they each took 25%. And if you think about that, that was pretty good, right? But I had the transportation. There was no way they could have gotten the lemonade down there without me. That was kind of the start of me wanting to run a business or running a business. Like Alan said earlier, when I was 15 years old, there were scarce jobs. I had moved sprinkler lines, I had ran a swather, I had done all of those things, but I decided I wanted to do something on my own. So I started a lawn care business where I provided fertilizer and sprayed weeds. At age 15, I built a little trailer and put a tank on it, and my mother drove me around for the first part of the summer. I turned 16 in July 21st, and was able to get my license and continue doing that. And I did that all through high school. It was a great business, and I turned out to have a lot of customers all the way from Fairview to Salina was kind of the area that I covered with that, and it was a great summer job for me. It made me a lot of money, and I remember buying a new motorcycle and paying cash for it, being so happy that I could do that, and I was excited about that. When I graduated from high school in 1992, I came to Snow College. I came to Snow College fall of 92, and in summer of 1993, I actually sold my little trailer and my lawn care business, and I sold it for $5,800. And I thought that was the most wonderful thing ever. I'm like, who would buy this tank and a list of customers? I went and served an LDS mission. I went to France for 2 years, and that was a great experience in my life. I came home and I reacquainted myself with my wife, Lindsay. Lindsay was attending Snow College, and we'd gone to high school together. And we were great friends in high school. We had double dated, but never together. Does that make sense? We'd hung out outside of those dates, and we were great friends. And soon we realized that there was a reason that she was here, and there was a reason I was there. And it was so great when we got married and we found ourselves attending Snow College. So my next slide is Snow College. I have such great ties to this place, as I'm sure you're all developing right now. It's about these relationships that you have with people here at Snow College. Cherish them. You really need to. It's just, we have friends that we created while we were at Snow College 20 years ago, and we're still great friends with them. So now we're in fall of 1995. I hated school. I don't know how else to say it. I was not enjoying school. My dad is an educator, my mother's an educator, my 2 older brothers have PhDs, and they had done school their whole entire life, and so I felt obligated to be here at Snow College. My dad wanted me to be either an engineer or a pharmacist. He thought those are the only 2 ways to make money. He was a chemistry teacher, and he thought that's the only way to do it. So I was pre-engineer, and I took, back then it was quarters, not semesters. After the first couple quarters of engineering with calculus and chemistry series, I felt smothered just a little bit. I passed, and I did okay. And I remember coming home to Lindsay, we were married by then, and I said, I want to change my major. I changed my major to business. And at that time, all the business classes were on West Campus of Snow College. So I went to West Campus of Snow College and met with, at that time, it was Eric Cadelius was an accounting teacher, as well as Morris Casperson. And I met with Morris Casperson, and he said, this is awesome. You should switch to business. This will be great. You're going to need to take business calculus. And in my mind, I thought, another calculus class. The business calculus was not at all like the calculus I'd been taking, and I loved it. And I loved accounting. And I found something that I really enjoyed. Plus, at that time, do you guys still not have business classes on Fridays? Or was that just something they did? You do now? I love that. It was like a 4-day work week. There were no classes on Fridays in the business department. So I was talking to all my friends who were still engineering or chemistry majors and just laughing. And I loved it. So I found something that I really enjoyed. But I still was wanting something else. I was working at Fat Jack's, which is now Roy's Pizza. Lindsay's parents own that business, and I realize now it's probably the only reason I got that job. But I was working there as a delivery boy, and we weren't making very much money, and we were poor students, and we were kind of struggling. And so that winter, I decided I was going to start another spray business. So I took like the little bit of savings we have. I remember we had $4,557 in our savings account, and I took $4,500 of that, and I bought a truck. And it was this big truck, like a big box truck. And I spent most of the winter out in the cold sanding it and painting it. And then I went through all the hoops to start a business. I got an EFRM business license. I recertified and took my pesticide applicator's license again. I went through all those hoops through the winter. And March 28th of 1996, I sprayed my first lawn application under the company called Goods Lawn Care. There is a reason this slide's kind of faded out, and you'll see why we did that. But we started Goods Lawn Care and Pest Control, and our slogan was Green Lawn Pests Gone. And it started to take off. Once again, we kind of started to conquer Sanpete County. By this time, the gentleman who I had sold my previous business to was not operating it. He had gone to school, and he got a job as a school teacher. He thought it would be a great fit. So before I even started, I approached him. I said, this may sound unethical that I'm going to start this business. What are your feelings about it? He said, how about you give me $35 and I'll give you your list back. So I bought my list of customers back from him for $35, and I started contacting those people and building this business back up. So we were Goods Lawn Care clear up until about 12 years ago. So about 2004, 2005, we operated as Goods Lawn Care. And we actually collected in Sanpete and Sevier County about 3,500 customers that we were servicing. We went from me in the truck answering the phone to buying a location, having a full-time secretary, and 4 full-time technicians servicing Sanpete and Sevier County. In 2004, in the winter of 2004, soon to be 2005, I bid a really big job with Sundance Corporation. Who knows where Sundance is? A lot of you, right? Sundance. So I bid a job with Sundance Corporation, and I had kind of become friends with one of the people who was on the board. And while I was talking to them after the bid opening, he said, "It looks like you're their parent low bidder." This was kind of a game changer for us because this was going to move us into commercial pest control, as well as they wanted some trees planted. So at that point, we decided this is going to be great. This is a huge contract. I received a letter from Sundance Corporation saying, sorry, for different unforeseen circumstances, we're not going to award you the bid. And I was somewhat devastated. It was huge. We geared up for it. We purchased other equipment. We made things happen. And I called my contact there, and I said, his name was Brett. Brett, what exactly happened there? I thought we were the parent low bidder. And he said, yeah, the corporation or the committee that met didn't like the name Goods Lawn Care and Pest Control. They thought that it sounded too unprofessional. I reevaluated our company at that time, and I thought, wow, that is true. Goods, what does that even mean? If they didn't know that my name was Travis Good, it didn't mean anything, right? That's when EcoLife was formed. We formed a company called EcoLife. Does it sound better? Kind of. Sounds more environmentally inviting and more environmentally friendly, right? By now we had a full division doing landscape installation. We were installing sprinklers, trees, shrubs. I had got my general contractor's license, and I had received my landscape endorsement contractor's license at that point. So now we had gone from just me in a truck to 2005 to about 25 to 28 employees. We were servicing all the way from Sandy to Richfield area, and our landscaping was taking off. So our landscaping was far surpassing our pest control lawn care. And then in 2007, we rebid the Sundance contract. We actually were not the low bidder, but we got it because our name was EcoLife. Interesting, what a name, right? So shortly after that, we received an opportunity as a company. What does that look like? I talked to somebody from Hawaii earlier. Which island's yours? Oahu. He is from Oahu. We had an awesome opportunity. We had landscaped a huge house in Park City, and I became really good friends with the owner of the house. His name's Trent. Still a great friend. And he called me a year after we had landscaped his place. It was probably a $6 million house with $1 million landscape, if you can imagine what it was. It was amazing. He called me and said, Travis, have you ever thought about working in Hawaii? No. I live in Ephraim, Utah. Why would I think about landscaping in Hawaii? He's like, how about you get on a plane and fly out here? So I flew out and I met with Trent. And he had bought a house, or a plot, not even a house, I hadn't built the house yet, on the Plantation Golf Course in Maui. If you know the Plantation Golf Course, that's the one that you usually see when they're doing PGA tours and they're talking about golfing in Hawaii or on Maui. That's the one you see. It's literally on the golf course, right? So I said, I would love to come and work here. This would be great. What do we have to do? Once again, I had to jump through a bunch of hoops to be a contractor in Hawaii. It wasn't a matter of just showing up and making things happen. And it wasn't like I can send equipment to Hawaii to make that work, right? It took a lot of logistics to coordinate all of that. So that summer, that winter, we spent in Hawaii landscaping on Maui. And it was exciting and fun. And we loved it. We took 2 employees at that time. And then we started spending, because winter comes here in November, we started spending our winters in Hawaii landscaping through this connection that I had with Trent. One of the places we did another place on the Plantation Golf Course, had a pool. As you would sit and look at the pool, then you would only see ocean beyond. And while we were there landscaping, we could see wells in the ocean. And I mean, what an awesome experience. We loved it. What we didn't like, there's something to be said about working out of town, and then there's something to be said about working out of town, right? It wasn't like you came home on the weekends. So you'd spend 6, 8, 9 weeks there. And that kind of started to take a toll on our employees. Even though it was winter time, they were away from their families. At this point, we had about 30 employees, and about 12 to 15 of them were full-time salaried employees, and they were the ones we were taking to Hawaii. So with that said, we kind of tapered back from Hawaii just a little bit, and we took a year off. And then we got a call again and said, will you please come? I'm going to do a whole division, a whole subdivision in Hawaii. Will you come and cut the roads in? Will you come and build everything? So we went from ground up on an excavation of literally nothing. Unfortunately, we took out sugarcane. It was a sugarcane place. We took that out and we were putting a subdivision in there. And we had a great time. At that time, I had a great friend named Cheston Madsen. And Cheston was the best equipment operator. Have any of you ever been around equipment? Ever? Quite a few of you. This guy could scratch your back with a track coat. I mean, he was good. He was good. He was so good. He was amazing. Cheston went with me, and between times, while I was there, my family would always get to come out. And my son Braxton, the last time we were there, well, the last time he was there, was about 16 years old. And we put Braxton, his job was to run this big fire hose and soak the water down while we're building these roads, and it was dusty, and he'd just get covered in this dust and wet and sticky. But we loved it. In the meantime, Lindsay could take my younger kids to the beach and have a great time. I'm going to tell you more about Cheston really quickly. Cheston committed to stay there and live in Hawaii, and he was going to run our EcoLife division in Hawaii. He stayed for several months, came back to Utah to clean up a few things that he needed to do with his personal affairs, and was helping someone free of charge, putting in a sewer septic tank system, and was killed with a backhoe. It was kind of devastating to me personally because I felt responsible for that. And that's when I realized how responsible I am as a business owner for all of these people who are working for me. It really kind of set me back, and I was heartbroken just a little bit. Now I look at my employees completely different than I ever did before. They have families, and we're responsible for them. So as a business owner, as you all start your businesses and you start to bring employees on, start to think about those relationships that you're going to have with your employees, because they're way more important than any money you could ever make or anything you're ever doing with your businesses. So just a few quick slides. So here's something I'm going to confess about this PowerPoint. Sometimes I get really busy, and one of my assistants is named Sean, and he is amazing when it comes to things. And I said, Sean, make me a PowerPoint, and I'm going to click through it and talk about the slides that you put in there. So here we go. We're just rolling with this. So he has put in some things that are some jobs we've done. We've done some cool water features. We've done some huge rock walls. We've built patios, pavers. Clearly, we're still fertilizing, which is still the bread and butter of our business. Does anyone recognize that? That was under construction. I see a hand. Where is it? What is it? It's the new science building, but it's not called the science building. What do we call it? I hear it. Say it loud. Grand science building? No. Who takes a science class in the science building? A lot of you. What do your professors call it? No. They call it the science building? Who knows Dan Black? Okay, you have an assignment the next time you meet in class to tell everyone in the class what it's called. It's the Science Center. And you ask Dan Black what it's called. He didn't want it to be called just a building. Have you noticed how interactive it is? It's cool, right? We had an opportunity. We landscaped that. We threw that landscape together in 3 weeks. We turned an 8-week project into 3 weeks because guess what? You all were coming here. So that's an at-home project that we were excited. We landscape lots of schools. We landscape lots of LDS churches. We go after and love these big projects, these big landscape projects. Construction is what we really specialize in. Science Center. You'll all call it that now, right? No, probably not. Just a few pictures of some things we do that we love and we work on. Let's see what slide 5 is. We'll see how exciting it is. Started another business, and as a matter of fact, Larry Durchie is a part of this business. This is called the Original Side by Side. It's a business that we started, and I realize we don't have a whole bunch of time, so I want to hear a bunch of questions from you about starting businesses and getting business going. But Original Side by Side is just a super fun business. Then we started the Original Garage, which is a spin off of the Original Side by Side just a little bit. We restore cars. So we have 4 full-time employees that work for the Original Garage, and we do car restoration. And it's the funnest thing in the world. We did a car show here at right in front of Stone College, between the Institute and the college campus. Pictures of our car show. That's a car that we built. That's a 37 Buick. If you guys are interested in cars or aren't interested in cars, you can still appreciate that. That thing is gorgeous. We have 2 employees that can fabricate anything. Those front fenders, they built those. They fabricated, come from a piece of plate steel, they fabricated those front fenders on that car. So that's inside our old shop. We now have a new shop that we've moved to. We're actually doing a TV series in conjunction with Snow College. And if you want to get involved in this, you need to talk to Chase Mitchell, and he can help you. But we've teamed up with Snow College, and we're doing a TV series that's aired on local TV here. It's on Channel 10 and Channel 3 TV. And really fun. We interview people who have cars, who've had them restored, and we try to get the story behind them. And one of our hosts is here today. Gary Chedester is one of our hosts. Wave your hand, Gary. There we go. Gary's one of our hosts in our TV series, which has really been a lot of fun. Now, the reason that I say we went from landscaping and EcoLife, and we still run EcoLife, and we love it, and it's a fun thing, to all these other businesses that we've started. This is just going to take questions, I hope. Well, this is maybe going to show some of the businesses that I own. Currently, I have 9 LLCs. I have 4 products that are patented, and I have 3 trademarks that are registered with the state as well. So those are a list of a few companies that I own. I really want to just spend some time, and we've got quite a lot of time. I want to hear your questions about starting a business or what you do or about our businesses. Does anybody have any questions? They better be good, because Alan told me you guys were good with questions. Yes?
What made your company do
Okay, very good question. The question was, what made our company different, EcoLife, from other companies that are doing the same thing? That's a really good question. There are about 3 things that we've identified that make us different. 1, every technician looks and acts extremely professional. That's one thing. We actually developed a fertilizer that works really well on Utah soils. I told you my dad was a chemist, and that helped us just a little bit. We found out that almost every soil in Utah is lacking in sulfur. And who would have guessed? We just pound it with nitrogen. But now we use a sulfur-coated fertilizer that makes our company just a little bit better. And to be really honest with you, with the pest control, one of the differences in pest control is really just our cleanliness of our equipment and our vehicles and our well-trained technicians. We have 9 technicians. That's their full-time job. They apply pesticides. That's what they do all day, and they're good at it, really good at it. They live all the way from Utah County to Richfield. So, great question. Yes?
So, just the other day, a couple months ago, I was driving and I saw one of your technicians not following the regulation standards. But how do you deal with employees that refuse to follow standards? So, like, he wasn't wearing his eyewear. He was applying the wet spray. He didn't have the eyewear on. He didn't have a hat. He didn't have the gloves.
These are great questions. So we receive those questions all the time. His question was, he actually saw one of our technicians not following the industry standards. That is a really good question. Our technicians are really well trained, but it depends on what product you're applying, on what PPI, which is your personal protective equipment, or PPE, that you need to wear. So I would imagine if he was applying something like that, he may have been applying a liquid fertilizer or something that didn't require those things, because our technicians are well trained in when and where they need to wear gloves. Also, all of our technicians have to have their own personal applicator's license. So for them to get that, they know the regulations and the government regulations, and everything is listed on a label. Did I answer that question well enough?
Yeah, I was just concerned, I was wondering because I've worked for a business like that before.
Yeah.
And usually with like wet fertilizers, you have to have eyeglasses.
Sure, and it depends on what it says on the label, and that's a good question, and I'd have to look into it, see what they were applying. Yeah, great question. Yeah, anyone else?
So what are some setbacks that have come across in the past the way to overcome?
Great question. The question is, what setbacks did we come across, and how did we overcome them? Anytime you grow a business, your biggest setback is cash flow. And there were times when we were so beyond extended what we were able to bring in that we were really struggling. Cash flow was probably one of our biggest setbacks. How I overcame that was sitting at my house at about 3:30 and 4 in the morning and doing calculations on how I was going to rob Peter to pay Paul. I'm being really honest when I say that. That's what happens with most small businesses, is cash flow, and it really is an issue and it really is a concern. So you bring somebody on, like I talked about, you bring somebody on and you say, okay, we're going to pay you a salary. Here's how much your salary is going to be. So there's a training period before you even put them to work. How do you pay their salary during the training period? It's always a concern. So how we overcame a lot of that was building relationships with banks. And you would be surprised how many people are willing to lend if you have any kind of collateral, or there were many times we put the whole entire business up as collateral to make those steps. That's a great question, and it's something that as a business owner, I'm constantly thinking about. My wife Lindsay can attest to that. We'll be driving somewhere, and if there's a lull in the conversation, she doesn't ask me anymore what I'm thinking. She knows I'm thinking about work. I'm thinking about the business, no matter when it is. Any other questions? Right there at the back.
So, like, obviously you say that you are over a couple of businesses, not just one. I just kind of wondered, like, usually when you think of an entrepreneur, they like all invest into one thing.
Sure.
How do you find yourself being able to, separate or divide your time in a way that you're able to make every single one of your businesses successful?
Okay.
How do you find a struggle with that?
That's a great question, and it's something I really struggle with. The question that he asked was, how do you find time owning several businesses? Most entrepreneurs just have something and they dive into it. That's a really great question. I have been able to surround myself with some really great people. That has been the real key, and we've had to go through several of them to find the ones that are really good. But to answer your question even more directly, sometimes I don't. Sometimes some of these businesses take a back seat to the one that has the iron in the fire. For example, I have spent the last month in St. George on a landscape project at an LDS Stake Center, and the only reason I've been there is we're just kind of spread all over on our landscape side, so I've been running a landscape crew. So the original garage, I met with them this morning because I was in town today. We met for about 2.5 hours, and we talked about all the concerns and the direction we're going to go there. And then as the whole staff left, I kept the main manager, his name's Jason, and we talked for about another 45 minutes about some things that needed to change. So I've been lucky to have some really great people, and I've tried to surround myself with good people who are willing to work and provide. And sometimes we've done some profit sharing with them as well, so they know the better turnout on this, the better their bottom line is going to be as well. Great question, and it's a challenge. It's a big challenge. It's something that we struggle with. Sometimes those things take a back burner and they're not moving as fast as I want them to because I'm not there to steer the ship, if you will. Good question. Yes?
How have you identified potential in a market? Like you've opened, several businesses, and so how have you identified that it's going to be successful or you think there's potential there before you start?
Okay. The question is, how have you identified potential in a market? And then how have you known that that's going to work? I'm going to tell you, any entrepreneur is going to tell you that you look past anything. You just look past it because you have this faith and this belief that your business is going to work. All the market research in the world still is not going to help you make that decision. However, we have done market research. So when we started the restoration business, we had to do some market research. How many people actually pay to restore a car? And are they willing to pay $60,000 to $70,000 per car? The answer was yes. And guess where we found out they all are? California. We are in Ephraim, Utah, in the middle of the state. Who in the world would want to do that with us here in this location? We feel like we've been handicapped a little bit by our location in all of our businesses, in EcoLife and in everything else. But I cannot think of a better place that I want to raise my family than Ephraim, Utah. So that's really what it's came down to. I'm not willing to leave. I'm not willing to locate somewhere else. And when I tell people that, we have a guy who's waiting. We're almost a year. We're 9 months to a year out on our car restoration. A guy in Phoenix, Arizona is waiting for us to restore his 56 shift. And we're going to go down, pick it up on a trailer, and we're going to bring it here. He doesn't care where it is. He just wants us to do it because he's seen some of our work. That's a great question. The market research is great. You need to do your market research before you dive into a market. But the truth is you've got to have faith and believe in what you're doing and then give it your all and work hard at it. And you'll be surprised you can create a market. There was not a market when we started in 1996. I would dare bet no one at that point in 1996 was paying somebody else to put fertilizer on their lawn in Sanpete County. Maybe there was, I don't know another company at that point, so I really don't know. I probably shouldn't speak that way because I think about it. I don't think anyone thought I could pay somebody to put fertilizer. I can just go buy fertilizer, so I think that was a good question. Any other questions? I have a question for you. Yes?
Have you ever invested in other businesses?
Yes, I have.
What do you look for?
The question he asked was, have you ever invested in other businesses, and if so, what do you look for? I have invested in other businesses, and it has not worked out very well for me. I don't work very well as a junior partner in a small position, and the reason is I kind of like the control, and you don't have any control as a junior partner in an investment. And I'm going to tell you the one business that I did invest in that I thought was a sure thing didn't turn out to be a sure thing. And most things like that usually aren't if somebody tells you that it's a sure thing. And it cost us a lot of money. I cannot tell you how many times we've had our house paid for and we borrowed money against our house to do something else. And Lindsay's smiling, and it's true. It's just part of being an entrepreneur and going with businesses. That's a great question. I think the one thing looking back in those businesses that I've invested in, I would look for, are they already profitable? And this is something that I learned from a sheep herder. who spent a lot of time herding sheep, and he had all these ideas of all these businesses he always wanted to start and he never did. But he always said, if you can step out on your front porch and you can look down the street or up the street and you can identify that somebody would buy your product, that's a good business to be in. So I think that's a really, really good advice. If you can identify that somebody would buy it, you probably ought to be involved in that business. Great question. Yes, right here.
So how do you figure out the different laws that are involved in the business? How do you figure out how you mentioned multiple times what
Okay. The question he asked is, how do you figure out what laws are involved in starting a business or moving forward in a business? Great question. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes I've learned when I've received a letter from a lawyer that we've broken a law. And then you're like, oh my word, what have we done? Or the department, I mean, a lot of things. That's a really good question. So the best place to start is just making some phone calls. So when I started, when we were going through construction in Hawaii, I had no idea what to do. So I actually called the state of Hawaii and said, I want to do construction in your state. And they said, oh, you need to talk to this department. About 27 phone calls later, I'm talking to the right person who then at that point faxed me, it wasn't even email, faxed me the application, and then I had to step through all of that process, and then there things were listed out. You need this much in liability insurance, you need to have a general contractor's license. And then I had to go take a test in Hawaii because my general contractor's license is for the state of Utah. Now it's for Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho, and Hawaii. But at that point, it was just Utah. And so you spend a lot of time jumping through all of those hoops. And just when you think you've made it, there's going to be another hurdle pop up. And you've got to be willing to just knock those down. And once again, I've had some really great people. I've got a really good office staff that I can throw a lot of that to and say, will you figure out what we've got to do to satisfy this need? That's a good question. It's really just perseverance. Any other questions? Yes?
How do you work with people that are, or how do you collaborate with people that are in different locations? What tools do you use?
Okay.
What's important?
How do you collaborate with people that are in different locations? Are you talking about your employees?
People in Hawaii, like here,
okay.
based in Hawaii and all over the world.
Okay. Good question. His question is, how do we communicate with those people in different places? Guys, I am just learning technology. You are so far advanced. I would hire any of you to help us get some of our products launched and going because you know how to do that better than I do. So to answer your question, it's new to me. Up until about 5 years ago, it was literally lots of phone calls. Now it's Skype, which is amazing, right? You can Skype somebody and see exactly what they're doing and what's going on there. It's FaceTime. We do a lot of FaceTime in our company. I know that sounds like maybe backwards, but it still just works for us. We can do FaceTime with someone. For example, last night at about 6:30 p.m., it was already dark. I had a technician in Mapleton who we were winterizing some water, and it was a girl. She's awesome, actually, and she had broken something, and water was gushing everywhere. It's dark. So she called me, and I'm like, let's just look at it. She didn't call me. She just FaceTimed me because she knew I need to show him what's going on here. And I was able to tell her, oh, this is where the water shuts off and what you do. Technology is changing everything. You can have a business based in Wells, Utah. Where's my guy from Wells? He left. Oh, I'm talking to him. He said he was from Wells. Anyway, you can have a business based anywhere you want, and with the technology we've got, you can run it. There's no limit. You can be anywhere throughout the world. We took our family to Europe last November, and there were several times I had to do some business calls. And I was in France. So it can be done. Yes, Mr. Cache Valley.
What do you think the key is to starting business?
Okay. His question is, what do you think the key is to starting a business or being a business owner overall? I love that question. Courage. The answer is simply just courage. You've got to go for it. If you've got an idea, you've got to go for it. In the world that you live in, there is no reason that you should not have some kind of side business putting yourself through school. Never quit school. You remember how earlier I told you that I didn't like school? This is Mr. Bachelor's degree right here. I'm so proud that I have a bachelor's degree, I can't even tell you. It took me about 6.5 years of online school, but I did it. But I'm telling you, don't stop going to school. You learn so much. You just do. It's just so, but you've got to have courage. If you're going to start a business, have courage and go for it. Start jumping through those hoops and then cross whatever bridge comes to. Any more questions? Yeah, one more.
You said you have some business partners. What do you look for in your business partners? People that you want to work with, what do you look for?
So currently the business partners that I have approached me. I had invested in some businesses before that we actually had to shut down and we lost money and it wasn't a good business venture. Currently, one of my best business partners that I really enjoy, his name is Gabe Reed. And if you know anything about football, Gabe Reed played for the Chicago Bears. And I'm going to tell this story, and it's probably good to see this sometime. Gabe Reed dropped the football and fumbled in the Super Bowl. It's the best story. I just love to say that about Gabe. But what I love about Gabe and my partnership with Gabe is simple. He's got to be the most honest person that I've ever dealt with. He would give up the shirt off his back to make sure that all of our transactions and anything we did, that I left feeling good about it. And it took a lot of lunches. It took a lot of meetings at his house before we ever pinned a partnership together. And I'm really glad we did. He's just honest. And you can sense that. I think the best thing that I've noticed in looking for a business partner is if they don't have a big ego. If they've got a big ego, you're probably going to have a problem. You probably don't want to be a partner with them. You want someone who's humble and honest. And that's a really good question. And it's an attribute that you all know. You can sit down with somebody and in a few minutes tell kind of their story or what their thoughts are. Next question. What are one of my biggest achievements in operating our business? I've had lots of milestones, and that's a really good question. You know, we talked about going to Hawaii. When I got invited to go landscape in Hawaii, and I had a customer fly me there to just have a consultant, I felt like that was one of my biggest achievements in EcoLife business. I felt really honored and proud. And I was proud to go there and feel like he treated me like I was an expert and that we could have a conversation about what he should do. And then to be able to come back and design that landscape, and provide that landscape for him, that was one thing that really, really was a milestone. Other milestones have been when we paid off some debt. I've done a little dance. Hey, we finally got that. We finally own that truck. Yes, it may be worn out, but we own it. But I'm just saying those things, like paying off debt, those accomplishments, or one of my very best employees, his wife had a baby this morning, and he sent me a picture, and he said 9 pounds 2 ounces, 21.5 inches long, born at 10:31. And the text message I got was 10:32. Wow, how many people send that to their boss 1 minute after their baby was born? That meant the world to me because we've got a relationship. I may have been known before his family was known. Does that make sense? We spend a lot of time together, and those relationships are really what make a difference in my business anyway. Yes. Cache Valley. Okay. The question is, how do you build effective relationship with your employees? And he believes, and I do too, that if you build an effective relationship with your employees, they do better work. I'm going to first say that isn't always true. You can have a great relationship with an employee, and that doesn't mean they're the best employee. But honesty is probably the very best thing you can do to ever build a relationship with any employee or anyone you're working with. So if any of you are employed right now, being honest with your employer is key. If you're feeling like you are getting the raw end of any kind of deal, you need to have enough courage. And it only takes about 3 seconds of courage to say, can I talk to you? 3 seconds of courage. And then have that conversation. You need to be able to have hard conversations. My best employees are the ones that I've had hard conversations with before, where I've said things like, hey, I don't like your performance. this isn't working well, and these are the reasons why, or we need to change this. And for them to come back and say, well, I could do better if your track hoe wasn't a piece of junk, right? Oh, well, let's have a conversation. I didn't realize that we were broken down like that. All I realized was the work's not getting done. And to be able to have those hard conversations has created some great friendships, as well as great employees who are willing to work for our company. And then I think the other thing for them to realize is they work for EcoLife, for most of those companies, or they work for the original garage. They don't work for me. I don't think any of them really feel like that. Maybe some of them do, but I don't think they feel like I work for Travis Good. I work for the original garage. And they want to build that. And they want to build that brand as well. Good question. We have time for like 2 more questions. Yes.
So a lot of people, they think of success as dollars. How would you define your success? Like, you kind of gave a little bit of an example with, the baby being born, which you're 1032, kind of thing. But how has your definition of success evolved? You might be what I'm asking.
That's a really good question. This question is, how do you define success as money, or how do you define success? Am I saying that right? Or how has success evolved?
How has your definition of success evolved since you
Okay. How has my definition of success evolved since I started? When I first started, it was really just to get out of going to college. That was kind of like my number one thing. Like, I just wanted to provide money or provide a living for my family. That was kind of the number one goal. And once that was happening and some of those needs were met, then I realized I had created something way bigger than just providing for my family. It was something that was just greater. It took me a lot of years, and it's probably only about 6 or 7 years ago that I found what really makes me happy, and it's not money. Don't take me wrong, I'm happier with money than without money. But the truth is, it's not money. It never really has been. It's about someone telling me, I love my water feature. I love my fire pit. Or them inviting us over. Go back to that slide, that big patio that we built. When they invited me over for a barbecue on their patio because they were so happy that they had this, that's really what it was about. When I showed you that picture of that 37 Buick, this guy's a doctor. You've never seen him so happy as he is at car shows showing off his Buick. And he wears an Original Garage t-shirt and he tells everybody, Original Garage did this. That makes me way more happy than the money. And it's about those relationships that you develop, and it's about making people happy for me. That was a really good question, and it took me a long time to realize that's what I enjoy more than actually making money. Any questions over here, guys? Okay. I appreciate this. Yeah.
You mentioned intellectual property.
Yeah.
Something about just do that and help you.
Okay. So we have a few items that are patent. One of them is actually a bracket that holds a high-lift jack on a Jeep. It uses 2 bolts that are already existing on the Jeep, and you can just bolt that on the side. That's a patented product. What that took was a lot more than I thought. We had to actually hire a lawyer, and the lawyer had to talk to patent engineers. We had to get the engineering correct on that product, even though we were selling the product, before a patent attorney would even look at it. Then a patent attorney took that, and it was interesting because it took about 6 months for that to happen. Once that happened, then we started receiving all kinds of letters saying we owed all this money, and there were all these false companies that said you need to send $312 to Baltimore, Maryland for your patent. And luckily I had a lawyer that was smart enough and caught all of that and said that's just people trying to get, and they were small enough amounts that I was like, oh, we better pay that, we better do that. There were a lot of hoops in getting something patented. We're out of time, but I want to say one more thing to you guys. Come up with an app. Brainstorm. Get an app. Get something for social media. Get something that's happening for you right now. When I was going to Snow College, there was a computer lab, and that was it. But the world is so huge right now. All of you guys may be thinking of like, what would make my life better? and get everyone else on board. You remember that analogy I gave you? Stand out on the porch, look right, look left. If you can do that here at Snow College and you can realize somebody would buy what you want to sell, start selling it. Don't wait. Become entrepreneurs. You need to. You're all here for that very reason. Take your talents and your abilities and do it. Thank you.